Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Virtual Office Hours webinar with the Kenyan Wall Street. Super excited to have each and every one of you with us today. We're currently live across the Kenyan Wall Street LinkedIn, YouTube, and X account. So for wherever you're joining us from, thank you so much. Let's give everyone a minute or two to join, and then we will get started. Hello, good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this week's edition of Virtual Office Hours by the Kenyan Wall Street. We have a very exciting conversation for you today, unlocking world-class workplaces. What is it going to take for Kenya to have the best workplaces, the best work environment, the best work culture in the world? So we have two very special guests joining us here today. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Andrew, the CEO at the Kenyan Wall Street. It's a pleasure for each and every one of you joining us across the Kenyan Wall Street LinkedIn, YouTube, and X accounts. Just a reminder, if you have any questions during the duration of this webinar, please add them in the comments section. And at the end, we've reserved a bit of time to address each and every one of the questions, or as many as we can get through, and we will do that. But before we get started, I would like each of our guests today to introduce themselves. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and where you're joining us from today.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So for the guests joining us today, my name is Caroline Mwangi. I'm currently consulting with Warade Advisory, but I can say organizational development per se, and governance as well. But professionally, been in the industry for about 15 years across different sectors, and so happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're joining us from today.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me. So I'm on the call from WorkL. We're a UK-based company that's in partnership with Kenyan Wall Street. So we basically provide data and analytics when it comes to all of the insight that you receive from survey entries. So the purpose of me being on the call is because our partnership has been kind of growing just under a year now. And we're looking just to kind of get a lot more organizations on board to be part of the publication for best places to work. And the reason why I'm on the call is just to kind of help in terms of insight on my side as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline and Michael. It's a pleasure to have both of you. Now we have some important things to discuss today. As Michael had alluded to, the Kenyan Wall Street has partnered with WorkL to run this year's Best Places to Work 2025 awards here in Kenya. And so for those of you who don't know, what you can do, whether you're HR or whether you are employed at a company, is that you can encourage your organization to contact Michael. If you need his email, I'll be able to show it up at the screen toward the end of the webinar. And you can reach out to him and get involved in that, where we are making and taking the step to ensure that Kenya's workplaces are competitive with one another and that employees are treated fairly and such. But to kick us off, I have a question both for you, Caroline and Michael. And that question is, what defines a world-class workplace? Carol, would you like to kick us off with that?
I can do that. Interesting. So there's so many things that can, and again, depends on people's experiences and what they're looking for in a workplace. Yeah. But what I'd say in brief, what defines a world-class environment is where people are learning and growing and contributed to impactful work. So if they, as employees of that organization, feel that those three things are being met, then that actually does define a world-class place. And for that to happen, that means there has to be some elements of alignment with values. The values in the organization have to align with the person. For example, you'll find people who are very high on collaboration, so they will feel at home in an environment that allows that to happen or to thrive in that organization. For some, psychological safety is very important in that you're able to challenge the status quo, you're able to give your ideas. If that environment allows for that, then that becomes a good work environment for them. And then also clarity of strategy and where the organization is going at is very important, because that means at any point, the employee knows exactly what they need to do, and they feel there's value that they're giving to the organization in achieving that. So if that is there, you'll find that more often than not, you'll be able to retain the employees, and they will find that place a good working place. So alignment is very important. Values are very important. Impact is very important, and learning is very important. If those things are there, and also inclusivity as well. Like how inclusive is the environment? Is it adaptable to my needs as an employee, right? If I'm a mother, am I allowed to be a mother at that point in time? If I have an ailment, for example, does the organization accommodate that? What is our gender balance in the organization? Do we have some representation in all levels of leadership or within the team? Do we accommodate different needs depending on the seasons of life that people are going through? That is also very, very important from my view and from where I sit. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Michael, how do you define a world-class workplace?
On my side, I would echo the majority of what Caroline said, but I think also in addition to that, in the leadership side of organizations, I think it's very important to have consistency and integrity. If you do have a team of people, whether it's a small organization or a large organization, you kind of need people to be on board to trust the vision that you implement through the structure of the organization. But I also do believe the culture is very, very important, because outside of receiving the packages of working in a world-class environment, it's always good to kind of have some kind of implementations in place and a structure that's valuable for all of the people in the organization. Also, building on that trust aspect of things, I do believe a work-life balance is building the trust with all of the people that you have in your organization, because it is always good to kind of collaborate when you're on site and you have people in the office that you could kind of like take to the side whenever you need to. But also when you do have your own time and you have a working environment that believes that you're going to keep up the workload from a hybrid environment or even a remote environment, that kind of just allows you to kind of take that on board on your side to make sure that you're providing the services that you could provide as well. So I would say pretty along them lines, I'll say on my side.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things and one of the questions we got when preparing for this webinar was, how does the Kenyan workplace compare to other global economies? I'm curious. This question, I guess, is general to either of you, but I'm curious. You know, do you have any insight, even any figures or ideas that you think could help us understand that a little better?
Should I answer that first? Or?
Yes, you can go first, then I'll come after you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So at WorkL for Business, as I already shared slightly earlier, that we basically provide our services for analytics and data from survey entries. And we've managed to, on our B2C side of the business, get public surveys out there via social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and other areas too. And with all of this data, we managed to be fortunate enough to receive over 5,000 data on a weekly basis from users that just volunteer our surveys and just grows our data that we have on organizations. So what we've noticed in the Kenyan market is that with flight risk and well-being risk index, so if you're not familiar with that terms, flight risk basically means happiness in the workplace and people that may potentially leave in the next 9 months based on their feedback. And also when it comes to well-being risk is more towards the mental health. We noticed that in Kenya, those particular areas with flight risk and well-being is fairly low. So by it being low, that means very, very good. So it basically means that people in the workplaces in the Kenyan market seems to be quite happy. So I'm guessing culture is quite a big thing in the Kenyan market. So that's based on what we've noticed with the data that we have in our system.
Okay, Carol, do you agree with that assessment? You know, having worked with a number of different firms over the years.
Somewhat. I think it's really dependent on the foundation of the organization, right? I found that is present in organizations that have like a global setting, wherein they are headquartered in a different country, and then they've kind of branched out into the African region. And the reason is because they're more mature, they're more structured, and so things tend to flow. There's a lot of transparency within the organization as well, but because it's mature, right? But I found that has been a bit of a struggle for startups, and mainly because we're having more and more younger, inexperienced founders coming on the table, which is good. But now what has happened is the gap it has created is because they haven't really been in our workplace long enough to know, the ins and flows, and if they haven't sought the right mentorship or coaching, etc., they've tended to fumble around how to make the workplace suitable or good enough for them, for the employees to thrive and for the organization to thrive. So yes, in terms of mature organization, I agree with that statistics. But now for upcoming organizations that are still also learning and evolving with the leadership that they have, there's been a bit of struggle from my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and Caroline, on that same topic, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm I guess
Yes.
an early stage company and such. So what advice would you give a young entrepreneur who has never dealt with kind of HR or establishing a corporate culture? What kind of common advice would you give them?
Yeah. So I would like to start off by saying it's not foreign really, but it's we understand that as you start off, you start as the individual building the organization. So when you're starting off, some of these things are okay. You're the one driving the organization. You may not have enough resources to bring all the experts on board to kind of help you put the right frames and structures in place. But I think it begins from knowing what your limitations are and being okay with that vulnerability of not being the expert at everything. So if the struggle comes in when the founder or the sole proprietor or whoever it is that is starting off this business or organization, not being self-aware and not wanting to accept that they're not experts at everything, and also wanting to be vulnerable to seek help in areas that they are honestly not good at. So, for example, you may be a CEO who is very good at finance, right? But you may not be as good with the commercial aspect. So your product, you're very clear about the product that you want, and you're very clear about how you want that to go. But in terms of scaling it, in terms of now going to the next level, you find that now the commercial skill is a gap for you. And so instead of now coming in and seeing how can I fill this gap, either by seeking a mentor in the industry who's done this before and asking for tips on how to go about it, or even just being able to bring in a person who is good at it and trusting in that experience. If you don't reach that level of vulnerability, then for sure you're going to struggle. So my counsel for any founder is it's important to be self-aware, like get to know what your strengths are and what your limitations are, and then seek mentorship, coaching from relevant players in the market who have done this before and good at it, and be vulnerable to ask for that help and or upskill. That's something that you have the bandwidth for, and then trust the experts as well. So once you bring an expert on board, trust the counsel they're giving you. Not to say you don't question, because at the end of the day, you're the vision bearer, so you know where you want to go. But trust in their input, and then build up on that to get to where you want your organization to get to. So vulnerability for me is one thing that I'd ask any entrepreneur to exercise. Put your ego aside, be vulnerable, and then do some work on self-awareness so that you're very clear on what your strengths are, what your gaps are, so that you have a complementary component in your organization, and that will definitely take you far. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I know, there have been times even in my own journey where I've needed to kind of seek, someone who's been through it before, someone who's seen it before, an industry expert like yourself, because it's not easy all the time. I think, I recall the first person in my entire career I had to fire. Like I had to think about that a lot and take a lot into consideration. Like, I was questioning myself a bit. I was like, this person's got kids, got a family to take care of, school fees, as a founder, that can also be an emotional journey. So I think your advice of kind of seeking external help, and just generally as an entrepreneur, you have to have mentors. That's just a given. Now I'm curious, and Michael, I'd like to get your take on this, because being with WorkL, you get to see a lot of data and a lot of insights from your side. And so I think that's quite interesting from your standpoint. So, one of the things that I guess has become a hot topic in the US has been DEI. And this has become a hot topic partially led by President Trump. But I'm curious, what is the business case for, employee well-being, DEI, and such?
Yeah, very good question. So I'm trying to look at the right terminology you're saying it, but I would say so with DEI. So I'm just trying to make sure that I got the term right. So we're talking about diversity and inclusion, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I believe it is very, very important. And also when it comes to working environments, especially in multiple different industries around the world, you have seen an increase of diversity and inclusion when it comes to different brackets such as age brackets, ethnicities, genders in the workplace. That's a little bit more common now, which is driving in the right direction. But I would definitely say that it also increases retention and also boosts morale in working environments, because naturally, when you are around different kind of people in a working environment, it is always gonna be quite useful. So I don't really have much to say about it, but I would definitely say that it boosts morale and retention within working environments. Yeah.
Okay. And Caroline, have you seen that on your side? What is the importance of things such as integrating DEI into, say, hiring practices and the impact on organizations that has?
Yeah, it plays a big role, because what happens is when you understand that diversity actually is a strength and not a weakness, then you leverage on it. Why? Because you'll find that different nuances arise by how people look at things, right? Different, depending on the culture you've come from, you'll view a certain problem in a different way. And so you find that having a diverse workforce enables you to have diverse solutions to problems, or diverse angles to a situation, right? So for example, if you're having a product, and you're trying to have this product penetrate the market. When you get different wild views or different perspectives, from a gender point of view, for example, or from an age point of view, for example, we're talking about the Gen Z, millennials, boomers, etc. If you place this particular product in front of this audience, you will find that they will give you different inputs of what they feel or think about the product or the experience with their product, right? So it actually ends up complementing your organization if you have a divergent way of thinking, of experience in the workplace. Also, if you think about experience as well, if you talk about the age group, for example, if you have a bit more older people, they can give valuable experience and exposure to the younger generation. And then with the younger generation, what I've seen, especially the Gen Z, is that they're very tech savvy. So they're complementing the workplace in that way. They're bringing in their tech savviness in the organization because they're looking for the easiest way, fastest way to do something. And so using that as a learning platform for people who are more seasoned in the industry. And so you find that that really works well, right? So I do believe that trying to have a diverse workforce in your organization really works for you if you look at it in that way, and seeing how you can harness that as a way to bring up solutions to the problems you're solving as a business goes a long way. And then when it comes to also the inclusion aspect of it, referencing to what Mike said about work-life balance, being accommodative of different seasons that people are in also really works well and goes into that inclusion aspect of it. Also thinking about people with who are differently abled. Can your environment contribute to having such people within your organization? Can you accommodate that in your organization? Because at the end of the day, all these different components, enriches your organization if you look at it in that way, and acts as an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage.
Yeah,
So
I think I completely agree from my own, perspective and such. Diversity in regard to perspective, age, educational background as well is important. And then, the lifestyles people have lived, you want some people and you want an organization that can, at least for me, running a media company, I need an organization that reflects much of, the country and the nation and the different lived experiences. And I know, one of the things that often comes up in Kenya is the topic of tribalism. And, for me, I want to make sure I have people of all backgrounds, not just one or two. And I think that's important. And, we often see that, especially on the political side, but on various sides of the ecosystem, really evolving. And so I guess my encouragement to all businesses is, that diversity is incredibly important, because if everyone reflects the same thing, then that's all you're going to get. And that's all you're going to understand.
True.
Now, I have a question. One of the major things, especially in, I guess, an earlier company, but also in more mature companies, is, balancing, I guess, from the executive level, cost management with, employee wellness. Because, it'd be nice if you can pay every employee 500,000 shillings a month, but that's just not sustainable. And so, Michael, Caroline, I'm curious, from both of your perspectives, do you have any insights or feedback into how companies can kind of balance cost management with, establishing a beneficial work culture?
Should I take this one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I definitely believe when it comes to working environments, it's always important to invest in your team that you currently have, because normally when it comes on a business perspective, ROI is one of the most important things when it comes to the workflows. So if you was to develop your current crop of talent that you have in your organization, that's going to be useful on a business term, and also in happiness in terms of growing as an employee. But I do believe it also provides a bit more consistency in a working environment. So, for example, you could come into an organization as someone that works in sales, and you could probably grow into someone that is within the tech side of the business. It just kind of shows trust within the organization that there's a consistency between different departments, that we're all going towards the same direction. So I definitely believe, yeah, sorry, I completely lost train of thought for a second, but I definitely believe with that kind of implementation in the workplace, it is beneficial for business and also for happiness within the organization as well. Like sometimes just give the opportunities internally instead of always looking externally for the right people to lead the direction of your organization.
Caroline, do you have any advice to executives, business leaders on how they can balance cost management with work culture?
I think we complicate it and we overthink it, because if you really are, if you really see the value in the people and know that the people are really the lifeline of your business, and have that as an integral driving force of how you build your organization, then now this becomes more of a conversation that you have with the employees that you are working with to build your vision, and build your organization. So I always say start small. Always understand the level that you are as an organization and start from there. And then also don't do this in isolation, because the problem is many employers do this in isolation and forget the answer really lies with the employees, right? And this also feeds into what we talked about, trust and transparency, when you're building your organization. So if you're building it from the ground up and you're involving the different players in your organization as you build up, right? If you're transparent in how you're running your business, then you'll find that these are conversations that employees will be open to have with you, and will even give you what they feel at that point in time over and above the money. That is important. At the end of the day, we need to pay our bills. But over and above the money, what else can they find value or valuable as they continue building this business with you? And as you build that, let's say, list of desires, you can negotiate and say, we're going to start from here, and we'll build on this list as we grow as an organization. And that becomes a motivation for the employees, because they can see we're working towards something. And so trust again comes in, where whatever it is that you promise, you fulfill, right? So if you say we're going to do this, do it, and then build up as you go. And as long as people can see that you really care and you're really genuine about you building this together, you will find that now people will not really look at the bottom line, and will look forward to other things that can help them. Because you see, it's not only about the money. There are others who are looking for growth. They want exposure to different roles, different information in the business that can help build their skills in a different way. There are those who value, for example, just the flexibility of being able to have a hybrid system, for example, and that really becomes such a valuable thing for them, to make them feel that this work environment or the benefits and all add up to the total employee value that the organization is giving this particular person. So I'd say this, start small, be transparent in how you're doing things, and involve the employees. Don't work in isolation, and don't assume you know what they need. Again, different industries, different things. Creatives, for example, in the agency, maybe for them, an open bar is what makes them happy. That works for them.
Yeah.
That might not necessarily work for a banking system, for example. So don't apply the same thing or the same principles in every environment. Try to understand the environment that you're in, the business that you're in, and then get to involve the employees to give you some of these things that they need, and then work from there. You'll find that the reason why many employers get into this space is because of being selfish. you want more for yourself, forgetting that for you to get more, you need these other people to get there. So if you're not selfish as a business person, and you're transparent, and you accept where you are at and are willing to build up to that, I do believe you can crack the balance, of ensuring that the business has what it needs, and you have the resources that you need to drive the business.
Okay, interesting. Now, I want to hop back over to Michael for a minute. I'm curious, Michael, what is the importance of internal reporting and data in managing the workplace?
I will say the most important thing about that is collecting data. So when you collect data from individuals in your workplace, you kind of have a bit more transparency about how people feel working in that environment. So am I allowed to mention what we do to kind of rebuttal the answer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. So we basically got one feature on our dashboard called, so basically we do have a list of questions where you do get like drop boxes and you get buttons, but there is one area where you actually freely get to type up your answers. And the question would be, what are 3 places that you could improve in the workplace? So this is on a basic perspective, but we do also have other areas where you could have a bit more variety to your answers for the questions. But with that, one feature that we have on the dashboard that gets a lot of attention, because with that you do actually get to see whether this is a common denominator amongst your overall work environment. So if there was to be that one answer that's been repetitively answered by multiple different employees, then you kind of know that as an organization, this is something that we need to look into. So that's definitely one feature that we have in our dashboard to kind of help with that aspect. But I think overall, when it comes to all of the data and analytics that you do get in the working environment, is it gives a bit more transparency. But I do think it's also very important for a working environment to kind of act on it, because it's always good to kind of collect all of this data based on how the people feel and get all of the feedback, but not really act on it. But when you do act on it, it kind of helps with retention. And when you want to boost the morale of all of the employees in the workplace, it just kind of gets the best out of all of your performances from each individual. So I do definitely believe data in the workplace is very, very important for that aspect, and also providing a lot more transparency in the workplace, so you know exactly how people feel based on whatever reason there is that you need to get information on.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's really important. And being receptive to feedback. As a business leader, you can be receptive and not appear as weak if that's what your concern is. You can take feedback, and I know that's one of the things. I come into the office, and if I'm not on a call, my door's open. It's always open. People can come in if they have any concerns, issues. Even despite us not being a massive team either, we're looking at ways, how can we allow even anonymous, feedback to be presented.
100%. And also, oh, sorry.
Yeah, you
I was
can
going to add to
continue.
it, yeah. So I was going to also add to what Caroline mentioned earlier when it comes to the question, when it comes to DEI. So I definitely agree with what she said, because you could spread wisdom as someone that's a bit older compared to the younger lot. But if you're senior leadership running the organization and you're quite outdated in terms of the average age in the working environment, so let's say, for example, the average age is in their 20s, you're a senior leadership person that's maybe in your 50s or 60s, you may kind of implement a structure that you're quite used to working in within your time working in their positions. But when you do have a team of people within that age gap, you need to understand that there has to be kind of an understanding that the way you do things may not necessarily align with what they're looking for. So by getting feedback by all of the individuals, you could implement changes to make them more comfortable. And as we always say, to increase your ROI, the best way to go about it is to make sure that you increase your retention. And as long as the retention is increased, you're going to get a better flow of business when it comes to your return on investment.
Okay. And even, I know one of the things I'm keen on is team building. So like one of the things we do is the Kenyan Wall Street, as everyone knows, Monday, 12:30 p.m. it's team lunch. Company covers the cost of lunch, but it's just, everyone gets to sit down together. We don't talk about work, we can talk about whatever, Tottenham beating Arsenal or whatnot. And so I think that's also important. Now, I have an important question, and I get this a lot. And actually, this is also a question, I have for you, which is, how can companies retain top talent? How does wellness and such, you've touched on it already a little bit, but how does employee wellness, team building, various things, how does that allow you to not just get top talent, temporarily, but to retain that talent within your corporate ecosystem?
So, in my honest opinion, I'll say, in my honest opinion, I do believe the best way to go about it is by team bonding, because the way I look at it is when you're working a full-time job and you do have a lot of responsibilities, it's going to take up a lot of your week working with the people that you have in your workplace. So in order for you to kind of want to stay within that organization, it's kind of an element of comfortability, but in addition to that, having trust in the process and potential seeing opportunities growing in the company as well. So if you tick all of these three boxes and you also have a lot of trust with maybe some kind of hybrid structure or maybe a remote structure, there isn't really much of a reason to leave an organization. But I do believe if there isn't much feedback going on in the workplace, it can easily just see two different visions with senior leadership and the people working in the environment, and you might kind of like get in a situation where you're unhappy in the workplace. So I do feel getting feedback on a yearly basis or maybe even a quarterly or halfly basis is very important, just to make sure that you're in line with what they're looking for in a working environment to retain the people within the organization, have transparency within the whole workplace, so you know exactly how people are thinking in the workplace, and also, mostly importantly, keeping your talent in the organization.
Caroline, do you have
I think
anything to add?
Oh, I have so much to say on this topic, but I'll keep it short. Probably that's a whole topic on its own. But I'll say this: leadership is everything. Many employees leave an organization because of their leaders or their managers. So one thing I'll say, please actively invest in yourself as a CEO to harness your leadership skills, because how you lead really, really plays a big role in how people follow, and also builds into their enjoyment of the work environment and them working towards something meaningful. And it really goes to how you lead your team. So as a leader, as a CEO of the organization, please work on your leadership skills, on your empathy skills, and then on your key leaders, ensure that you have a way to keep assessing, monitoring, upskilling your leadership team as well. Because you could do everything well culturally. You could have the hybrid system. You could have all these beautiful fancy benefits. But if your team doesn't feel seen, heard, and psychologically safe to be in that environment, if they don't feel included in that work environment, then it doesn't matter what you give them, they will leave, right? And at the end of the day, you'll have people working there for the benefits and giving you zero, right? They're just there, I have a very big paycheck. I have a hybrid system, for example, and other benefits. They will be there for that and nothing else. And so if you want to harness I would say, or optimize the value you get from those who you're working with towards your vision or achieving your vision for your organization, then you have to be on top when it comes to leadership and be intentional about developing those skills within yourself and within your leadership team. And then the rest are more of add-ons. Once that is there, then now the rest, now you can add on, see what benefits you can add that, again, depending on the environment you're working with and the feedback that you're getting from your employees, right? Be intentional in having these conversations with them, either during your one-on-ones or during your performance appraisal conversations, or during the team building conversations, or during the town hall conversations. Whatever avenue you can get to get as much feedback as you can, use those opportunities to know what the employees themselves need, even as much as you use that opportunity to convey what the business needs. So at the end of the day, you're all aligned as a team. You're all aligned and working towards the same thing. And you're also not doing things that you think are adding value to someone, and yet it's not adding value to someone, which ends up being a waste of time. So for me, most top thing is, as a leader, know how to lead. Be intentional about learning how to do it well, and make sure your leadership team as well, that skill set is also priority in terms of development. And then the rest are just add-ons. And you'll find that you'll be able to retain talent. Yeah, because at the end of the day, peace of mind is the most important thing. People want to come to a place where they enjoy coming, they're seeing value in their work, they have comradeship, or what is it called? Yeah, friendship, whatever that one, the one in the work environment. It brings joy to them. Once people have that, then you find productivity becomes almost effortless in that particular organization. Yeah, so that's my view.
Okay, and I'd like to remind all of our listeners, if you have any questions, please add them into the comments. We're going to start the Q&A here in a few minutes, and we'd love to hear from you and address your questions directly. So no matter if you're listening in from LinkedIn, YouTube, X, wherever, please add your questions in the comments section. Our team is here looking at all of them, and we can address them as we go. But back to the conversation. Now, both of you had mentioned hybrid and virtual workplaces. One of the biggest criticisms I hear from a lot of executives, especially about specifically fully virtual workplaces, is I can't control my employees. I can't, work with them. It's harder to engage with them. And so I'm curious if either of you have any opinions on that. And then secondly, how can leaders keep hybrid and virtual workplaces very engaging for employees, to where, you are working with a team, you're not working in a silo?
Okay. Will you go first, Mike, or do I go first? I can go first.
Okay, you're going in.
Let me go first. Yeah. Really, it's you have to be intentional, right? With this particular, because it doesn't, like, having an employee come into the organization every day physically does not translate to productivity. And once you understand that, then applying either model should be easier, right? I feel there's a disconnect between what people consider as performance-based and, like, you just being seen to come in and clock out, right? That model worked very well in a factory, and it's because the machines are timed and it has a certain start point and end point to have a particular output. That really works well in a very structured environment where the output is predictable, right? But in the changing world as we see it, it's if the goal is very clear, if what I need to deliver is very clear, right, then that's the operators that we should use, the parameters we should use to gauge what productivity I'm bringing on board. So anytime you're struggling with performance with your employees, then ask yourself, do they really know what we're trying to achieve? Because more often than not, you may find the issue is that there's no clarity on where we are going. And that is why you're not seeing the productivity or output you're expecting from this particular individual. Either it's not clear by the fact that whatever you've presented to them is not clear, or they themselves don't understand the direction in which you're taking. And so it really begins from the beginning. As you are agreeing with this particular individual, what we are achieving for the quarter, for the year, for the month, whatever it is, right? Ensure that there's an understanding that each party knows exactly what you're trying to achieve, right? Then make sure that there are clear guidelines, on how we're going to achieve this and what is my expectations of you, to get the end product for whatever it is that we're looking for, right? You find that if that is very clear, then at the end of the day, you will not for you, you will not be concerned whether I'm seeing you every day or I'm seeing you 3 days a week. It's, have we agreed? Are we sure this is the timeline that we've agreed? If those are the that's how you framed how you work as a team, then you will find that you will not have a struggle with whether the employees are hybrid or they're physically in the office, right? It also goes about trust. When you talked about trust, yeah, there has to be a trust element between you and the employee. And you see, as an employer, you can always decide to change how things work if the employee has not also earned their trust. If, for example, if you've given them this option and you find, because again, people work differently. There are people who really, honestly, the hybrid thing does not work for them and they won't be productive. And so being in the office is what might necessarily make them productive. Take time to understand the team that you have before you apply a standardized approach in how you want your organization to work. That's usually my personal opinion and what I've seen from experience. So as a CEO, as a leader, take time to learn your team, take time to know their working style, and then now put in rules and parameters of engagement so that at the end of the day, the expectations are very clear. And if someone does not honor what you've agreed, then now you can take a different direction. But applying a one standard policy for everyone, I think that's where a lot of frustration comes in, because people don't take time to learn each other and try to understand how everyone works and apply the right technique or the right approach for the right person. So that's my view of that particular question.
Michael, any insights?
Yeah, Caroline kind of nailed it, to be fair, but I'm gonna give it a shot. So, sorry about that. So I definitely agree with everything she said, and I do believe there's different kind of roles and different assignments that people have in organizations that require collaboration and natural collaboration too. So normally, when you work in remote environments, let's be honest, this is 2025, is a remote era. You could work from anywhere around the world. But sometimes for a natural collaboration, you need to physically see someone to maybe just get them to the side and maybe collaborate in certain projects. But there is also roles that are task-based. So when they're task-based, it kind of requires you just to literally wake up in the morning, put on your laptop, focus on these tasks and go about your day. But there is also some roles where it requires some kind of collaboration. Also, it never really stops. So for example, I work in sales. In sales, it never really just is 5 p.m. Then after you go home, you always have work to do. So I think in those kind of areas, sometimes you kind of need some kind of hybrid model or some kind of collaboration naturally, because working from home doesn't always allow you to collaborate as much as you would do in the office. So it's kind of like a catch-22. But also, going back to what we mentioned earlier when it comes to workplace happiness, when it builds the trust within your employees. So when you've got senior leadership people that are trying to control the narrative in a working environment, this could kind of have a hinder on the happiness within the working environments. So I would like to be in an organization where I feel trusted. So if I'm working on site or if I'm working from home, there is some kind of elements of trust. And also some people don't work well under micromanagement, and there's also other areas to kind of factor as well. So so I think it is always going to be a debate whether it's going to be good to be on site or work from remote or hybrid. But I do think different people have different working styles, and as Caroline said, it's really down to the leadership to kind of know the people within the environment and how they work and see how you can facilitate for them. So I kind of I didn't really have like an end message to it, but it kind of like could see all different angles of why people have these debates.
Yeah, and maybe just to add, Andrew, again, not to take away the fact that yes, as Mike said, the scopes of work that require close collaboration, and there's just something different when you meet in person, right? So adaptability is what I'd say. Like as an organ, don't be rigid, be adaptable. Adjust according to the team that you're working with, the industry that you're working in, the environment that you're working in, right? And then now incorporate different techniques to make sure that it works. So for example, with communication channels, let it be clear that if you're hybrid, these are the communication channels, etc. For example, if that's something that you have, or you're fully remote, say that these are the communication channels that we'll use to continuously Communicate. If you're out of office, make sure it's in your calendar, or if you're not working in the office today, make sure it's on calendar so that people know they will not find it. Like, ensure that systems are in place, policies are in place to kind of guide whatever structure that you decide to adopt, to make it easier and to ease the friction that comes out because of applying some of these new ways of working, right? And I feel that the founders that have struggled with this are those that have not understood that it's all about the policies that you apply and the follow through, right? And then understanding the different working styles that actually makes this thing work, right? And then also being intentional so that if you're a remote fast environment, you're intentional to create spaces where people can actually meet, either have social events online or save up as a business and bring people together in areas of proximity, depending on where you're situated in the globe, and use those avenues for people to connect deeper, because there is, for sure, we cannot discount, there is something that happens when people come together physically. So creating those opportunities, but understanding that any system can work for as long as the right policies are in place, the right understanding is in place, and there's alignment. Any of this can work. Flexibility is what is needed really in this day and age. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And I think what you guys just said transitions well into the public Q&A. So someone actually messaged me on WhatsApp. Not sure how they got my number. Maybe I'll need to look into that. I wrote down the question here. It is, and I think the question they're asking specifically, Caroline, on this, but Michael, if you have any thoughts, love to hear from you as well on it, is how do I address issues of managers contacting me on the weekends or late at night?
Man. It goes back to what I said, where developing the leadership to understand boundaries, right? It's important. Work-life balance really is about boundaries. Yeah. And so this person is wondering how they can ask their manager, or how they themselves as a manager.
How they should address the issue, I'm guessing, because
Yeah.
I think on occasion I found myself in this before, where I was young with the organization, and so it's 24 hours a day I'd answer, would love to hop on and solve the issue. But as I got later on, I was like, oh, I set a weird standard that I'm reachable all the time.
You've actually answered it, Andrew. Set boundaries, right? And communicate this in a very, I'd say, professional way. I don't know how there's a word for it, but I forget. But let me say professional for lack of a better word. Ensure that, again, alignment. I don't know why people find this so difficult, but I say, for me, communication eliminates a lot of conflict in any situation, whether it's personal or professional. So I do believe in communicating, right? And having a conversation with this respective line manager and making them understand the limits to which you can be, and why it's important for you, right? And then again, but being flexible as well, because we do have emergency cases where, for example, if it's an editor and a breaking story has just gone live or whatever, those are special circumstances where the person won't even judge you or won't find any fault if you reach out to them, right? So I'd say there has to be a balance. Boundaries are really important. Working around those boundaries is really important. And for managers to also understand that at the end of the day, people have lives that they need to have. They need to unwind. They need to, for them to be at the optimum, they need some downtime. So communication is very important for this particular person. Have just a candid conversation with this particular person and create some boundaries around, how can we communicate? If you need to reach me, perhaps text me. Don't call this text, and then if it's urgent, I will respond back. Set some ground rules on how you want to operate with each other, and that should help you navigate some of these difficult situations that arise, but also exercise some flexibility, because there are times that some things will come up urgently, and be willing to also play that role, play that part when that time comes. Yeah.
Michael, do you have any insights for us on that?
Nothing much to add, but I have been in situations like that previously in previous positions that I worked in, and I think what Caroline said with the boundaries is very, very important. And also just having that communication. So once you do have a communication, unless it's urgent, you can contact me, because that's something that we always say when we're on annual leave. Like I do have my time off, but unless it's urgent, you can get in contact with me. But if not, we can always wait till I come back. So just really just setting boundaries. I would definitely echo that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've had to learn this as an executive myself, because being kind of a startup founder, there is no personal life. You're everything you're doing is working, grinding, hustling, and it can be hard at times in that kind of founder role to realize, be like, hey, wait, my employees are not as vested in this as I am. And I think that's an important distinction, and that's something that I think a lot of young executives kind of learn as they go. Is it's like, oh, I may work till 2 a.m. every day, but no one else is.
Yes, yeah. And just to say just to add on to what you've said, Andrew, that's where the self-awareness comes in, and then learning to not project your working style to other people. And I think that's where some founders go wrong, right? If you're a workaholic, which is not something we encourage, but if that's who you are, do not project that to other employees or expect them to work in the way that you work. And that's where communication comes in, right? You communicate as a founder what your expectations are, and then be open to listen to the other side, and then arrive at a middle ground. Because at the end of the day, we do understand work has to be done. And most of your smaller team, sometimes they may need to put in more than that they are mandated to. But really making sure that you're self-aware on how you show up as a CEO or an executive is really important. That's where the self-awareness comes in, so that you can know even yourself where to put the boundary, and also learning to be considerate of people and seeing them as they are people first before anything else is very important. So it really goes back to you being very self-aware of how you operate, and ensuring that you also create the necessary boundaries in how you work and show up with the team that you have under you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for that. We got a few questions. This one is from Michael, from Jennifer Green. How do we get recognized in the awards this year? Michael, take us away.
Yeah, of course. So we definitely have a landing page on our website. So as I mentioned before, at WorkL, we're in collaboration with Kenyan Wall Street. So I believe if you was to go on Kenyan Wall Street website, there is a section on their website where you can also redirect directly to our website to start the whole process. If you did need more information regarding the services and also the minimum requirements to be part of the publication, there is a section where you could say contact the expert, and that'll come directly to me, so we can book a call in maybe at any time that's convenient for you. Just to also make you aware, we do have a deadline on the 26th of September, so it is fastly approaching, and we do have organizations that we're frequently speaking to on a daily basis. So if you did want to know more about it, you could get in touch with either me from WorkL or at Kenyan Wall Street, and we'll get some kind of way of getting in contact and getting in touch. So the process, long story short, literally through the landing page where you can start the entering process, or if you needed more information before making a decision, you can get in contact with someone from either WorkL or from Kenyan Wall Street, and we'll be able to help you throughout the whole process.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you can always reach out to us at the Kenyan Wall Street. Myself, Michael, we are really keen on recognizing those companies doing exemplary work in the space. And we have a lot of entries so far for the awards. And so we're really looking forward to it. This is the first year we're launching it here in Kenya, but WorkL has been doing a lot of good work in recognizing this, I believe, for several years now in the UK and other places. Now, Michael, on that as well, we have another question about the awards from Femi. Can fully remote organizations also be recognized?
Oh yeah, of course. So it's completely, there is no discrimination in terms of who enters. The only companies that wouldn't be able to enter is companies that's not registered in Kenya or don't have an entity in Kenya, and also companies that have less than 10 employees. But if it's a fully remote organization, you may even notice in the question set, there is a question where it says, do you work on-site, remote, or hybrid? So that's just basically just confirming that you could enter as a fully remote organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And we have another question here from Maxwell. It says, what innovative approaches are emerging in how top companies recognize and reward talent in real time, especially in a resource-constrained environment? Who wants to take that?
All right, let's see. I can take that first and then Mike can go next.
Okay.
So I'd say celebrate loudly and immediately. It doesn't need any fluff. It doesn't need any structure. If you have communication channels, if you have frequent stand-up meetings, celebrate that loudly and often, as often as possible. And then you can incorporate that in more structured employee or reward systems that you may have as an organization. But I always say be very fast in how you do this because it really does add up to the morale that someone has when they're seen and their work is valued. And then over and above that, then now, as I said, you can now also see how, now this is more a structured way in how to go about it. It could be through nominations. Different people apply different things. Nominations from employees directly or nominations from team leads. See how that can become a culture where that information comes in. And then, these individuals are recognized. Try as much as possible to attach these rewards to tangible results, not because of popularity contests or anything like that. Try and remove that popularity aspect of it, but try and see if you can attach it to something tangible within the workplace so that people can actually see that it is objective and not subjective. And then I think that's what I can say around that. So really, there's no really, I'd say, best formula to do this. I think the consistent thing is doing it as soon as you can, as loudly as you can, and as often as you can, and then also marrying it with other structured ways of doing it.
Yeah, I don't think it always has to be monetary. Rewarding is just recognizing good work within the organization. I agree with you, making it quick, not waiting a month later to say, hey, this was a good job. That's a month where someone's sitting there like, oh, did I do a good job?
Yeah. And maybe not to touch something in terms of the resource constrainment, Maxwell. If you can look for small things. It doesn't have to be big. Vouchers here and there. Again, these are things that you can learn from your own organization, from the people. If you have conversations with them internally, you can know what people like and see how to do that. But another way is you can also, for certain roles, you can see if you can engage them in bigger projects, for example, just as a way of recognizing that the work that they're doing. Some might also need, maybe having a team around them. So you may find that it doesn't always have to be attached to a monetary thing. If you know your team well, you will be able to see, to identify some of the other interests that they have, and then see what you can incorporate. For others, you can even decide to give them a day off, for example. There are so many things that you can do to still achieve this without necessarily breaking the bank. But as long as you're consistent in how you do it and you do it fast and loudly and often, I think that's the most important thing. Mike?
Me, I like to take people to get a coffee. Be like, hey, let's walk to Java and get a coffee. That cost me what, 300 shillings? It's definitely not going to break the bank.
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, to be fair, very similar. So I think some people like to be rewarded differently from others. So you may see some people that might want it to be announced. So for example, in my organization, we have Monday meetings and the whole organization is involved. And sometimes, sorry, not the Monday meeting, sorry, the all hands on deck on a monthly basis. And when people within the organization want to thank or give kudos to people that have helped them in some projects, they'll just literally announce it so the whole organization can see exactly what you're doing in your role in the business and how they appreciate it. Some people would rather that. Some people would rather just get their bonus and just do something in their own time. And others will probably just want to be appreciated in a different way where they might just want to get the team together, maybe go out to get something to eat, get something to drink, or whatever works best for them. So I don't think there's really one way of doing things. As we established throughout this whole conversation, you kind of have to be able to read the room as a owner and see this team or this individual likes things done this way. So how can we facilitate it for them? So I don't think there's really one way of doing it. But to be honest, we all have money, so that's one thing that can probably help. But outside of that, there's also different ways of appreciating what they're doing. So yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Michael, do you mind if I put your email up on the screen real quick for people who
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So for those of you who had questions about the awards or taking part in it, we have I put up Michael's email here. It's michael.davies-euro@workl.com. You can reach out to him and learn how you can be involved or how you can help get your organization involved. Because, you know, the reality is there are organizations and businesses in Kenya that do not treat people very well and such. And for me, when WorkL originally reached out to me, you know, I was thinking, how can we make this more competitive? You know, how can we make the job market here in Kenya in a way to where people want to work for particular organizations and people want, you know, and are happy there. They don't stay there just because, you know, the paycheck is always on time. And so I think this is important in building our economy and building our nation up in that. But I know we are a little bit over time, so I wanted to ask Caroline, Michael, do you have any concluding final thoughts? If I'm just now joining the webinar, what's the one thing I need to take away from it?
Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so one of the main things I would say is that with happiness within working environments, it's always very important to collect some kind of data when it comes to employee engagement, just to kind of see where you are as an organization. I would say on my side, feedback is very, very important. So anytime you do take part in any surveys, whether it's yearly, annually, or quarterly, sorry, I said yearly, annually, I do apologize. So making sure that you onboard the feedback and just seeing how you could facilitate the changes in your workplace for your working environment. And also, I would say there isn't one way of doing things. Make sure that you're implementing it the right way, you're reading the room, and you're learning a bit more about each individual in the workplace before implementing any changes, just to kind of make sure that you are creating a positive working environment for all of the individuals. But I think one of the most important things I would say, if I was to say one word, I'll probably say there isn't one way of doing things, but just make sure that you just know that how to lead your team.
All right, I'll say this. For me, vulnerability is not weakness; it's strength. So know yourself. Take time to know yourself. Take time to know who you are as a person, what you like, what you don't like, what works best for you. Because trust me, it actually shows up in the office because that's who you are. You cannot take that away from you. And culture begins with the leader. So whatever culture you're trying to build in your organization, whatever you're trying to see, what you want to see often in your organization, believe me, it begins with you. And once you have an understanding of that, then everything begins to make sense and work together. So I'll say always aim to know yourself better, learn yourself better, and then also be intentional in learning the people that you're working with, because assumptions really make things worse. Try not to assume. That really, and that's, I think, really now leverages what Michael was saying about data. Always known from the known to the unknown. So leverage on information as much as possible. Do not assume. Take time to learn. Take time to understand the environment you're working with, the people you're working with, and use data to now make informed decisions on how to ensure that your organization thrives and you're building that culture that you want to see every day. Yeah.
Awesome. Caroline, Michael, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom and knowledge on us here today. And thank you to everyone who has joined us online across LinkedIn, YouTube, X. If you didn't get a chance to watch this full conversation, the moment we end the stream, this will be up on our YouTube page. You can go back, watch it, learn, and I'd highly encourage you, even if you're not a manager or an executive in your firm, you can reach out to Best Places to Work through us at the Kenyan Wall Street or through Michael at WorkL. And, we'd be happy to help set up your organization with that, because we're all here to build, a better workplace, a better country, and such. And thank you all so much for following the Kenyan Wall Street and for tuning in today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.